After getting so much feedback and positive feedback, frankly, on the how to wash a car in direct sunlight video, I think I thought I would do a little bit of a follow-up video. I guess because, you know, my background is mobile detailing in Southern California, and not that Southern California has terrible weather, but we do have different types of weather too. Sometimes we deal with a lot of wind. I live in the coastal lands, and so we deal with a lot of dew and a lot of overcastness in the morning and then hot sun in the afternoon. It's pretty dry. We're in a bit of a drier climate, especially as we get into summertime. And what I realize is conditions aren't always perfect, right? And so there's a lot of people that, can work in perfect conditions. There's a lot of people that have a shop. It was a big deal for me when I had a shop and I could start washing inside and just kind of taking a break from the sun, which was really nice, even though my warehouse portion isn't air conditioned, which is kind of, the more you have air conditioning, the more you realize where you need air conditioning, I guess. But I also realized that a lot of detailing advice, even that I put out, assumes that you have like these perfect conditions, perfect shade, you have all day to work, you're not on well water, you're using deionized water, you have every tool possible. But when I thought about kind of my beginnings and really what my a vast majority of my detailing experience is, it is working in suboptimal conditions. I'm working at Carl's Jr. corporate offices, and it's literally 102 degrees at 10 a.m. I'm in the back of a black asphalt parking lot, and I have 7 cars to do. Like, how do you do that? And so I've done that. I've done a normal day for me. Mobile detailing was 10 cars. That was, pretty much all by myself. That was in a variety of different situations. I've done detailing. I've done paint correction in the sun. It's one of the reasons why I found 3D speed and why I like that so much and have so much experience polishing in direct sun or partial sun. And so today I thought it'd be fun to kind of walk through how you can still get, call it pro level results, call it, good results, even when you're working in rough conditions. So sun, wind, no pressure washer, in a time crunch, kind of the stuff that actually happens so often. And I'm so guilty of this myself, of, showcasing a YouTube video or talking about a method, and it works kind of in that moment, but not many other moments. And so I thought I would kind of, because the reaction was so positive with the working in direct sunlight YouTube video that it's just 1 or 2 videos past. I'll try to remember to link it, but I'm really bad at that. And so I thought, well, I have all this vast experience of working in these suboptimal conditions. Why don't I just talk about, some of the things that I have done? And sometimes we don't think about what has become so normal to us and what has actually worked, and because we gloss over it because it's normal. Kind of like the whole idea of, why did I start a podcast about detailing? Well, I wasn't really thinking about it until Pete brought it up and was like, you probably know a lot about detailing. Why don't you just talk about that? It's kind of the same thing. I'm still learning 10 years later. So I think the first thing when we talk about working in direct sun, if this is going to be a common occurrence for you, I just cannot stress enough how helpful deionized water is. And if you're a mobile detailer, you can go to other detailing supply stores and fill up for usually about 10 cents a gallon. You could fill up your water tank. If you're even an at-home person, I remember my buddy Greg, his neighbor, was the one that introduced me to deionized water. And he was just kind of a prosumer back in the day and washed his own cars. But going to something like DIRinse.com, or even Adams Polishes has a similar deionized tank. Culligan, I think, is a water. You can rent these tanks. I rent tanks from a local place. It's very inexpensive. I actually have a YouTube video on my deionized water tanks. It is, if you stay away from the, I don't know what those dual blue tanks are, but I think you need to change the resin like so often. It's the ones that Obsessed Garage and Matt uses in his pressure washer setup. I think if you're just washing a few cars a week, that might be fine. But from the research I found, you have to change the resin quite often, and I think that can get pretty expensive. So it's not as good looking, but you can get some bigger tanks that can last you a lot longer and are a lot more cost effective. Especially if you're a mobile detailer, it's fine to go get water from the local auto detailing supply store. But if you don't have one local, like that was my problem. I didn't have one kind of on my route. I was kind of in a desert for detail supply stores. Renting tanks was just a great option. And if you want a little hack on how to find those, if you look up your local like pressure washer, sometimes like your lawnmower repair shop, definitely your pressure washer repair shop, they will probably either rent them themselves or know someone that does. So this is bar none like the number one tip. I mean, it's going to completely change your life by doing this. And again, using soaps that have long dwell times help. Like I mentioned in the direct sunlight video, most soaps, I'm hesitant to say all because I haven't tried all of them, but most soaps, including the super soaper, as long as the soap is on the car, it's not going to water spot. The super soaper I intentionally made to have long work times. I know everyone freaks out when they're like, let it dwell for 3 to 5 minutes. It's going to dry in the sun. But it was designed to kind of dwell for a long time because that's how we're picking up a lot of dirt off the surface. But if you don't have deionized water, some common comments that came up was like, some people work section by section, right? They'll do half a car at a time. This is where sometimes using a rinseless wash could come in, but I've done rinseless washing in hot areas, and it's really not fun, especially when you come to things like rims and tires. Really, really not fun. But kind of a pro tip when you are drying the car, remember, sitting water is the enemy. So making sure that you are like using a blower, making sure that the water is actually beating up. I know a lot of people say, well, I don't like the water to beat up. I want a sheeter, not a beater. But when it comes to getting the water off the panel, you actually do want it to bead water because it'll more quickly move off the panel. If you absolutely have to, having a spray bottle of distilled water is kind of a really inexpensive hack because you could re-wet the panels as you go. If they start to dry a little bit, re-wetting them. You could even do like a little bit of, this is totally off label, but you could use like a little bit of toughest shell in a bottle with kind of your deionized water or filtered water or whatever. And as you're re-wetting the panel before you're drying it, you can add protection at the same time. That's a total hack off label use. Again, this is about getting good results. And so, yeah, if you're dealing with wind, dust, it's just the worst. I remember I was detailing a car one time, actually doing a paint correction on a new car that this guy was giving to his son for his birthday. And it was like, we get these a couple times a year, just a dust bowl where I live. And I think the most important thing if you're dealing with a lot of wind is communicating properly to the customer. If you're detailing for a customer, to let them know that, hey, look, this is really not going to look that good. If you want, I can come back another day. If you really need it done today and you don't have a garage or a place to pull it into, just know that I'm going to do my best. But, you know, all things considered, we're dealing with a really, really, really dusty day. And if you're doing that, really working panel by panel, that's when I would really highly suggest having a spray bottle with either a waterless wash or a rinseless wash in it to kind of encapsulate the dirt and dust. Because basically what happens, obviously, if you can imagine, you are washing the car and it is almost immediately dirty, dusty. And when you have that, you have the risk of scratching the car like crazy, right? So one little hack is like avoiding quick detailers that have too much alcohol in the formula. Might be kind of hard to find, but because that alcohol, it's in the formula to dry up the formula, the liquid, I guess. And so, but it can dry too much. And so just be aware of that. If your product's kind of drying too quickly on the surface, it may have a little bit too much alcohol. Doesn't mean the product's bad. I want to be very, very clear on that. I mentioned something about, most soaps, if they're on the panel, won't water spot. And two people, but I look at all the comments, but a couple people mentioned that I was like trying to bash other product brands. I was actually talking good about product brands. And so anyway, I do have a problem. I do have a problem with product brands that put out bad products. I do, but I'm really changing my tone and trying to not mention that. So a quick detailer with a lot of alcohol is not a bad product. Let me just be really frank on that. But if you're dealing with a windy, dusty day, man, it's a nightmare. What I like to do is have my blower, compressed air, something like that. And you are going to need to, if you have both mixed, like hot and wind, you're just in for a bad day and it's just going to be one of those days. But a hack that you can do along with having a spray bottle handy to kind of re-wet the panel is literally blowing off the panel right before you're going to touch it again. And that is probably the best thing you could do. So whether you have compressed air or some sort of high air output, whatever that looks like for you, blowing off the panel before you go back and touch it again is probably going to be your best bet when you're dealing with wind. And again, if you're doing this for money, communicating with the customer that like, look, I'm going to do my best, but this kind of sucks. I think one thing to also kind of just keep in mind is that you don't need every tool in the book if you have less than ideal circumstances. And I think that's what people oftentimes think is like, I need more tools because I'm dealing with more circumstances. But a lot of the times, and kind of my style and detailing in general, is the more tools, what often happens is it just makes things more confusing. And sometimes you don't know where your system is broken because you have too many tools. So kind of narrowing down your tools. You don't need a full setup. Obviously, having things like a foam cannon is great. Obviously, deionized water, if you're going to have any tool in your tool book, deionized water is that. But again, a foam cannon, not totally necessary. You could work with a pump sprayer, and kind of foam your car. I think I'm going to do a video on that of like foaming your car without a foam cannon. I think that'd be kind of cool. But focusing more on your methods, not necessarily your tools, is going to really, really help you. So, top down, you're working on the more shaded side of the car first. You're kind of assessing all your options. If I have an easy up tent, does that work? But it's windy, so that's not going to work. Does the customer have a garage? Would this be a good place for a rinseless wash instead of a foam cannon wash? Do I have my blower set up? Do I have my compressor set up? Do I have all my tools set up efficiently? Kind of, working through your systems and your processes. Not to say that you should completely neglect the tools, but sometimes in situations like these, minimal tools is actually better. Again, I probably wouldn't recommend 2 buckets. But again, you don't have to have a hose. You could have a hose. Don't have to have a pressure washer. You could have a pressure washer. It brings up a whole nother subject. Someone brought up, if someone doesn't have a pressure washer, are they not professional? That's a topic for a whole nother day. But yeah. Another not optimal thing other than conditions and weather conditions are time constraints. And so working on tight, I remember this when my kids were real little. It was like, I always have loved my cars to be clean, but when I had really little kids, I would only have these little, kind of spurts of time to work, these little windows of time, right? So aside from being a mobile detailer, if you're kind of just doing this as your own, there's usually 3 areas. I used to call it the poor man's wash or like the lazy man's wash. And there was 3 areas that I would focus on if I wanted my car, and I still do this to this day. If my mobile van was looking a little worn for wear and I didn't have time to clean it, or we were going on a little trip and I just wanted my car to look clean, but I didn't have that much time, there was 3 areas that I would focus on: glass, wheels and tires, and interiors. And I still do that. In fact, after I record this podcast, this is something I'm going to, actually do myself. If your front windshield is clean, makes you feel good. You're looking at that. You're staring at that a lot, right? So front windshield inside and out, and then all other interior glass, if you can do that. Rims and tires, you would be so amazed at how good your car looks just if your tires are dressed and your rims are clean. So often people would compliment my mobile rig for looking just amazing, when in reality, all I did was clean the rims and dress the tires. That was actually something I did daily. Not dress the tires daily, but I would wipe the rims down every day on both my truck when I had it and trailer, or my van. I would wipe the rims down because I found out that most people think I have a clean car if I just clean my rims and dress my tires, right? And then interior, again, just a quick wipe down with like the complete cabin cleaner on a towel is very, very simple. It doesn't take any time. And so it's very, very easy to do. Of course, if you have a little bit more time, this is when you could do like a waterless wash or a rinseless wash if you're really short on time. But if you just prioritize those 3 areas, like interior, exterior windshield, interior glass, rims and tires, and a quick wipe down on the inside, and you're just like a busy parent and you just want your car like a quick spruce up, that is a very, very quick way to clean it up. And again, you don't have to try to do everything. Again, these are not ideal circumstances. So we're not trying to do everything. We're focused on what matters most visually, right? And again, that's where so often I was just so amazed that like I just cleaned my rims and tires and people thought that, you know, my van was clean. And especially when I had a van that needed a full paint correction, no one ever once said, oh my gosh, how embarrassing, that detailer has swirls in his paint. Never. It was always like, wow, your tires and rims look so good. It shows that sometimes we have an eye for something different, right, as detailers. So again, getting great results and great detailing doesn't always happen in perfect conditions. So it really just happens when you know how to adjust. So if you're, you know, in this situation, you're in that time of life where your kids are young and you just want to have like your car good enough. I know as a detailer, I should probably recommend all or nothing, but sometimes we just got to get it done, right? But if you got the right products and the right plan, honestly, you could still get totally killer results even when the conditions are crappy or totally suck. So if you want to try any of the products I mentioned, obviously the Super Soaper, Toughest Shell, my microfiber towels, the complete cabin cleaner, they're all available at jimbosdetailing.com, with most of those also being on Amazon as well. And so thanks for listening to this podcast episode. I thought I would just kind of piggyback on what we talked about with washing in direct sunlight and just kind of hitting this like not ideal circumstances for car washing and kind of detailing your car. So hope you guys enjoyed that one and got a few tips and tricks out of there. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. See ya.